I think Violet I think she wanders New York. I think she ends up at NYU, where she had hoped to go a long time ago. And I feel like she probably wanders the world after she graduates. And I think she probably writes a book one day about Finch. And it's interesting when people ask me what happens to Violet. I'll pretty much tell them what happened to me, because I feel like I am Violet in a lot of ways. But I think she has all these bright places ahead of her, and I feel like she's going to wander. I would love to change it. I would love to just make it the happiest story. And I actually thought about that when I was writing the book, and as I think almost all of you know, it was such a personal story, and I really, really was torn about making a happy ending or just writing what I knew in real life. And I thought, at the end of the day, obviously, I thought, you know what, I'm going to write my experience, and hopefully that will lead to a lot of, happier endings for the people reading it. It's a great question. I think that there's a lot that could have been done. I think his parents could have paid better attention, certainly his mother especially. I think that, Romer could have not been so horrible. I think his classmates could have been more accepting and less judgmental. I think Finch also could have been more responsible. I think that he could have reached out and he could have let people in and he could have asked for help. I thank you for that. I think the thing that informs it the most is knowing the boy that I knew who was like Finch, and just seeing up close, every day his struggle to be in the world and to deal with all the things he was dealing with and try to make sense of them. So I think that first and foremost was what really, created Finch for me. And beyond that, because I feel like I had this great responsibility, especially because I was writing for young adult, to make sure that everything was as accurate as possible. So I definitely talked to experts, and I talked to people I know who suffer from depression, who are struggling, with suicidal tendencies, and just to make sure that everything read as accurately as possible. And it was really, as I said, really important to me. But at the end of the day, it was mostly knowing that boy and what he went through. Well, one thing they can expect is that Giselle makes a cameo appearance in the book. Is a character. I've been asked if All the Bright Places is like a 10 tissue box book. What could we expect for Holding Up the Universe? And I say it's about 5 boxes maybe instead of 10. So it's a little bit happier. It was really fun for me to write. Jack and Libby are the 2 main characters, and I had a lot of fun with them, especially Libby. So it was hard at first for me to really get into these 2 very different new voices, because I live in the world of Finch and Violet, and it was hard to make that separation. But once I did, I had such a good time with Jack and Libby, and I hope that shows on the page. It's a story about really learning to find your place in the world and seeing others for who they truly are, not who you think they are. And I'm hoping that you'll get all the feels with a little less tears. Question. I started in nonfiction, as you said, and then I moved into adult novels, and I was actually finishing the 4th in a series that I'd written for adults. And in the spring of 2013, my literary agent died very unexpectedly, and I'd been with him for 15 years, so it was just turned everything upside down for me. And I was feeling very burned out because I was writing this series of novels for adults, and the last thing on my mind was writing a new project. And after he died, I was talking to new agents, and they were asking what the next project would be, and I thought, oh my gosh, I have to think of one. And I kept coming back to this last conversation I had with my agent. He said, whatever you write next, I want you to write it because you can't imagine writing anything else. And I felt like I needed to honor that and honor him. So I really took time to think about what that should be, what I really truly wanted to write. And I kept coming back to this boy I loved all these years ago. And I love reading young adult. I've always wanted to write it, and I thought, you know what, now's the chance to do that. And I talked to my fiance and I said, do you think that anyone would want to read this story? Do you think there's any story there? And he said, you need to write this book. So I did. It was really scary at first, especially because, you know, I did go to film school and I got my graduate degree in screenwriting, but it's been a while since I've done that. And the director of the movie asked the producer, actually didn't ask, he told the producers that I was the only one who could adapt the movie, adapt the book. And that was so intimidating and they said okay, because they listened to him. And that was scary for me because I thought, oh, it's no pressure, you know. But it's been really a wonderful experience. It's been an interesting one because, you know, the film doesn't have as much space as books do, so you have to cut certain scenes and you have to make certain changes for the film to make that translation. And that was really tough at first because, you know, I would look at every scene in the book and I would think, no, but this is really important, it has to be in there. And I told Miguel, the director, and he said, Jennifer, we would be making a 12-part movie. And I said, and? I would go see it, but I don't know how many other people would, but anyway. So it's been challenging, but I think the important thing for me is that the readers, to me, are always the most important thing. And as long as I can tell the story in a way that honors the readers and honors their experience of the book, that is crucial. And so I went out very early on in the process and asked readers online, what scenes would you absolutely want to see? You know, because I'm going to have to cut some. What scenes do you need to see in the movie? And so I really do listen to that and listen to the, you know, from all the fan art and all the wonderful posts. I know the favorite lines from the book, and I want to make sure every single one of those is in the movie as well. So it's been a great experience, and it's exciting because I think we're shooting in the fall. Let's see, I'm trying to remember the last time I was on a writing break. Kidding, but I do write a lot and I work all the time. But it is important to have balance, and it is important to have time for yourself. And I will play with friends, my family. I will dance. I love dancing, and I'm taking dance classes at this place near my house. And go hiking. I live in Los Angeles, so it's always nice weather, and I love to be outside if I can. Travel. I love to read. So, and probably ultimately reading and binge watching television. You know I love Supernatural. Yes. Those, I love doing both of those things, and those are both great kind of escape and recharging for me after writing. I feel like, you know, I started wanting to tell it just because it's something that I went through and I've been carrying around for quite some time. But when I really look back on the process of writing it, I think the main reason I wrote it is because I felt when I lost my Finch in real life, I felt like I wasn't really allowed to talk about it because of how he died, and that made people very uncomfortable. And as a result, I think I kept that in and carried that around for a long time. So in some ways, I think I wrote this book because I had to talk about it, and ultimately, I wrote it because we all need to talk about it. And when the book first came out, I had some adults who took issue with it because they said, first of all, the adults are unrealistic because they don't pay attention, and second of all, we shouldn't be talking about this kind of thing to teens because it's too soon. They can learn about this later, but they don't need to know about this now. And my problem with that is that the teens I hear from, a lot of them, unfortunately, are not being listened to by the adults in their life, and they need to talk about this because they need to know that they're not alone, and they are going through stuff, like it or not, and we need to be there for them, for all of us. We need to be there for each other. So I think that's really why I wrote it. But I didn't really know that until I was well in the process. It's a great question. You know, I've written now 9 books, including Holding Up the Universe, and every book wants to be written differently. So it didn't surprise me that All the Right Places and Holding Up the Universe had to be written kind of differently too. And as I said, you know, it was really challenging at first for me because I'm so in the heads of Finch and Violet and really stayed in that world, you know, since well before you know, when I wrote it, like since I wrote it, I've been touring, I've been living there. So breaking free of that to write Jack and Libby was a challenge. But one thing that I did to kind of help myself was I made playlists for not only the book, which I always do, but for both of the characters. So Jack has his own playlist, which is very distinctive, and Libby's is very different from his. And whenever I needed to write, I usually don't write to music if it has words, because it can be very distracting from the words I'm trying to write. But in this case, I did write to words. I just put on Jack's playlist, I put my headphones on, and I would just write. And then I would switch to Libby and switch into that playlist. And it was a really good way for me to just drop into the emotion and the voice of those characters. And it was a fun kind of challenge too, to write a book that way. And I would think, oh gosh, you know, I'm just gonna write it. I'm not gonna think too much about it. I'm gonna listen to the music, and I'm just gonna go where it takes me. And one of the really fun things about writing Universe was that I kept surprising myself, and that was really fun. I would try to do the unexpected, and the characters were doing the unexpected, and so it ended up being a lot of fun to do. My message to you all is I can't thank you enough for all you mean to me. Some of you know my mom died a few months before All the Right Places came out. And so All the Right Places is the last book she'll ever read of mine. And that thought to me has been so devastating until recently when I wrote Holding Up the Universe, and my first instinct was, oh my gosh, my mom's not here to read this. But then I thought, you know who's here to read this? It's you. And I'm gonna cry. You all just mean so much to me. And you can't know how much. So thank you. I love you, I truly do. And every time I say that or post that, I just mean it with all my heart. So know that. Thank you.